Hello, everyone. My name's Stephanie Boozer, and I'm happy to welcome you to today's CUGC Connect webinar with IGEL. Glad that you guys could join us today. I know there's a lot of online stuff happening and it's competing for your time, so I'm so glad that you're here with us today. Really love seeing you out there. I am going to go over a couple of housekeeping details before we get into the UD Pocket. First of all, just want to let you know that we are recording today's presentation and you'll receive a link to that recording tomorrow. That's going to come directly from GoToWebinar, and we'll also have a couple of other resources in there for you, so be on the lookout for that. We'd also like you to submit your questions anytime that you have them. We're going to be keeping an eye on those, and we're probably going to save them all for the end just so we don't interrupt anything. But do type them in as you have them, and we'll take time after the presentation to ask all those questions. And finally, I do have a short survey for you guys. It's anonymous, it's super fast, and it's just for CUGCs only. So I'd love to have you guys fill that out. I'll put a link in the chat towards the end of the webinar for you. Okay, so I want to introduce our moderator. Bart Jacobs is a CTA, a Citrix Technology Advocate, and he is located in Belgium. Bart is going to keep an eye on all those questions for us. Bart, would you like to say hello to everyone?
Yes, hello everybody. It's evening in Belgium, so yeah, keeping the lights on.
Thank you. And presenting on behalf of IGEL today is Dan O'Farrell. He's the Senior Director of Product Marketing. He's done, I think this is your second webinar with us, Dan. So
yeah,
welcome back.
Third.
Oh, yeah, maybe the third.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, welcome back. And with that, I'm just going to hand things right on over to you. I'm going to send you the screen right now. Here it comes, and you can get us started.
Great. All right. Hey, thanks, Stephanie. Happy to be here, everyone. Thanks for joining us. What we're going to talk about today, probably quite timely, actually, given what's happening across the world, is highlighting a product called the IGEL UD Pocket. And we've been offering this product for a couple of years now. And essentially, it's a copy of our IGEL OS operating system on a very small USB pluggable device. And on this cover image, you can see how small it is. It literally is, I describe it as the size of a thumbnail, roughly. But this little thing, a lot of people will actually attach them to keychains and things like that because it is so small, it's easy to misplace. But of course, we can always replace it with a replacement unit if you do lose it, because it's basically just IGEL OS. But anyway, it turns out that this little device can instantly convert any Windows or any operating system, any local operating system running on a personal device into IGEL OS. And then when you unplug it, that device goes back to its original operating system. And I'll talk about things like security and how we separate the OS from the native OS, etc. But it just turns out that right now, as I speak, this device has become extremely popular with both our existing IGEL customers and new prospects, as so many companies are now, moving to these work from home initiatives. That was a trend that had been going on for quite some time, but it's obviously been expedited by the need for so many teams, development teams, operations teams, etc., to leave the office and go home, just given the state of the current pandemic, etc. So let's advance here. Work is something that we do, right? We don't necessarily have to go to work. Now, I myself have been working from a home office for about the last year or so. And so many people are used to working from, airport lobbies or coffee shops, etc. So the concept of not being in your office is nothing relatively new. And we're kind of separating where we're physically located from where we're actually getting the work done. And that's what this means, right? When someone says, what do? You don't say where you do it. You say, hey, I run the marketing function, or I work in operations, or I'm a developer. You might in a second sentence say, and I do that out of such and such a place. But what you do is not necessarily where you are. And because of that, right, there's this move toward working from home. And again, this has been vastly accelerated by the current state of the world, where we're all kind of trying to be as separated as possible from large groups to protect both ourselves and the rest of the community. But even outside of that, right, many people have discovered that if they can set up a good work from home environment, they can actually be as productive as ever, if not more, right, because they're eliminating a lot of that travel time. A lot of people are happier if they have the ability to work from home. You know, we have this concept of the work-life balance. Now, it does take a little bit of your own self-discipline to be able to make sure, okay, this is my work environment at home, and this is now when my work day is finished, or if I want to depart from that to run an errand or spend time with my kids, maybe there's a soccer game or something, that you kind of have a distinction between those two things within your house. What I do, for instance, is I've set up a little home office in my house, and I've got these double doors that go into it. So when those double doors are shut, my message to my wife is I'm on a call like this. And if I've got one of the double doors open, it means I'm still working. And then when I'm done with my day, I open them both up. So, you know, whatever personal kind of hints or tricks you want to employ to kind of, you know, separate your work mode from your home mode, most people find that to be pretty helpful. Certainly the work from anywhere thing still stands. So if you're not at home and you want to go grab a coffee, or if you do, when we can all start traveling again, that still holds true. And that's been going on now for quite some time. I think what a number of people are going to discover, if they were not used to working from home before, after we kind of exit the current state of the pandemic and life starts to return back to normal, I think in many cases, the work from home will start to become more commonplace. It's like, wow, this actually works. I can get just as much done now. Now, having said that, development teams, product teams, there's great value in being together. So it's not like the whole world's going to move to this model. But what's great is if you can quickly move from one environment to the next. I already talked about managing work and home, right? This guy with the small child in his lap. And I was on a call before this one where my boss had his little daughter sitting on his lap. You know, you're kind of forced to improvise at times, right? But the fact of the matter is you're there and you can offer some help. I already talked about travel time. Prior to my current location, I was working at the IGEL headquarters in San Francisco, and I lived in San Jose. So the way I went to work every day, because the traffic in the Bay Area is terrible, is I would take the train. So I would leave my house. I had about a 12-minute ride to the train station. I would wait a few minutes. I would take a 1 hour and 10-minute train ride. Then I would walk about 1.1 miles to the office. So door to door, it was 2 hours each way. So now that I work from home, theoretically, I have bought myself 4 more hours of either productivity or work-life balance. And then office space. It costs money to rent out space in an office environment. And the move towards the concept of hoteling and the move towards the concept of no longer everyone having an office, that's been going on now for well over a decade. But that's another benefit. Companies don't have to spend as much money on office space. And then if you care about being, you know, kind to the environment, the fact of the matter is if we've got a distributed workforce where people are working from their homes and you're not, you know, renting out a lot of expensive office space or having a bunch of business buildings that you're working in, it can help reduce the carbon footprint. Right now, and I've already mentioned this, there's a need for people to work from home. But even prior to the pandemic outbreak, in many cases throughout the world, things have happened where people had to work from home. Think of the fires in Australia. Think of things like, blizzards and natural disasters, whether it's an earthquake like that happened in California many years back, or flooding, right, or severe storms. In many cases, the ability to be able to take your office home with you, can be extremely beneficial for business continuity purposes. Companies can remain productive regardless of the type of disaster that may occur. And let's face it, if we look at these 5 examples, none of these could have been predicted. That's the thing, right? You cannot plan for a natural disaster. It happens. And the real goal for companies is to be able to be prepared and react as quickly as possible to keep up and running. Okay, so this year, the current situation is unique. There have been a multitude of events have been canceled. Some have been postponed till later in the year, but most have been canceled. Certainly at our company at IGEL, since we provide endpoint software for cloud workspaces, we were looking forward to Synergy in May, right? That's our literally our biggest external event. And we're getting ready to prepare for that. Synergy is now a digital event, and that is happening across the globe. A lot of these events are either becoming digital, so it's a virtual event, if you will, or they've been canceled altogether. Now, one of the byproducts of that is that companies no longer have to have people travel to these events. The event itself becomes much smaller in scope from a cost perspective. So what we're doing at IGEL is we're taking those funds that we had earmarked for Synergy and using them for other purposes internally to help get the word out, including our combined solution with. So if events are getting canceled and we're pretty much forced to work from home, for a lot of people, that is something that is actually new. Think of development teams, right? Those guys typically, they go to the office every day. Operations, oftentimes finance, the groups that keep the company running, oftentimes are not used to or never have worked from home. So this sampling across the European Union shows, surprisingly, for example, even in Germany, a very advanced country unto itself, a large percentage of people have never worked from home up until now. Great Britain and Iceland, Northern Ireland, and some of these other places, Belgium and Luxembourg, etc. You may have more people who are more used to working from home, but when you look at this image, it's pretty clear that this move to force people to have to work from home can be quite disruptive for a lot of organizations. Here's a quote from Matt Mullenweg, CEO of WordPress, where he's saying that, millions of people are going to get a chance to experience days without long commutes, which is great, or the harsh inflexibility of not being able to stay close to home when a family member is sick. So, what we believe will happen is that those who are forced to work from home and have to get up and running very quickly, I think what's going to happen is some of those people are going to stay there. Now, again, if it's a development team, a lot of the people in operations, they're going to have to go to the work. They're going to have to go to the factory. They're going to have to go back to where their primary workplace is. But what might come out of this is more flexibility and a recognition that people can get as much done from home as they thought they could only do from their workplace. So this trend that's been going on over the last few years, where people are working more and more remotely, I think we're going to see a spike in that now out of necessity. But the tail from that will be kind of gradual, right? I don't think it'll spike all the way back down again. What I think is going to happen is a lot of people will have discovered that this is a real viable alternative as long as they can stay productive and as long as the enterprise can remain secure. The other thing that is driving this is technology, right? Now Citrix really wrote the book on accessing your desired apps and workspaces from anywhere. Citrix has been the world leader in leading that charge. In VDI, Citrix Cloud, there are a lot of complementary technologies on the left side of this slide that enable people now to work from home as long as you've got some mechanism to manage all of it. The whole idea here is to escape the whole Patch Tuesday thing by moving Windows into the data center and using VDI or moving Windows into the cloud so that companies can still access the application. And then we have the tools that we're using, GoToMeeting, other tools like Zoom and Teams, WebEx, etc. So now it's pretty easy for people like us as we speak to get together and have a productive. And then we have easy ways now to store information, use the cloud, whether it be workloads or our data. And then there are actually business functions that are running as cloud-based services, as a service. And certainly, you know, Office 365, Salesforce, Workday, all of these examples are extremely popular now across enterprises all over the world. So it's sort of like, you know, unlike maybe 10 years ago, we have all the pieces necessary to enable anyone to be very, very productive, not from just the office, but from anywhere, including their homes. Okay, so that's good from a user standpoint, right? So we've talked about, okay, people can be as productive as ever, maybe more because they have more time. They can be happier, they may be healthier because they can actually take a break to work out or whatever. But remember, this is for enterprises, and enterprises have to protect their data, and they have to make sure, as we've discovered in VDI, one of the benefits of that is you want to enable people to do their jobs, but also perhaps more importantly, not do what they should not be doing. And that is where Citrix has made a living over the years, with brokers and clients to enable that to happen, for companies to be able to control what people can do. So we have to worry about the security of the endpoint. We do want to make sure there's enough bandwidth capacity, which is, by the way, is being stressed right now with everybody using unified communications. We want to make sure that people can get to the right applications. We have to make sure that the devices stay up and running. We may be concerned if they're using kind of an old device or an out-of-spec device. We want to support the BYOD. We still have to deal with Windows updates and patches. We have to figure out how to deal with that. And security is the biggest issue, right? You want to make sure if someone's working from home, especially if it's not their native office device, that it's a secure session and that nothing's compromised. So the way to do this historically and today is through virtual desktops, virtual applications, virtual workspaces. And again, as I said, Citrix has been actually was the pioneer and remains one of the absolute leaders in this field, right? To enable people to access their desired apps, desktops, and cloud workspaces from anywhere. So this is nothing new. Citrix is in a very strong position. Most of the deals that we win at IGEL for our end user computing management and control are Citrix-based environments. And now what's happened, obviously, is we've got cloud as well. So Citrix plays a big role in all these clouds, right? You want to access these clouds, Microsoft Windows Virtual Desktop out of Azure. So this should look fairly familiar to most of you guys if you're familiar with IGEL. But the way this works, and I'll talk about how the UD Pocket actually gets up and running, is we take any device that is a compatible 64-bit x86 device, and that is a candidate to be managed and controlled with IGEL OS. So the typical scenario is you've got a PC, and it can be from anybody, Dell, Lenovo, HP, or a thin client, Dell Wise, HP, Lenovo, any of the other guys who sell thin clients, including ourselves. We have great endpoints. And essentially what you do is you load IGEL OS onto that device, and you make that the primary operating system. The device only requires a gigabit, actually a gigahertz processor, or 1 gigahertz processor, and 2 gigabytes of RAM. That's all you need. So one of the big benefits, obviously, is if you've got an enterprise with a lot of aging PCs, instead of having to do that dreaded PC refresh, which can cost millions and a lot of disruption, you can just load IGEL OS onto it. And a lot of the deals we win are just refreshes of existing hardware. Because again, our primary offering is the software, it's IGEL OS. This is what it looks like. So when you load IGEL OS and start it up, you see this workspace from which, for example, you can click on the Citrix icon, the Workspace app. We also can include, based on profiles, a secure browser on there as well. If somebody wants to get to kind of web-based, cloud-based applications. We work closely with Citrix, probably, certainly, if not the closest partner, one of them. We do more business in Citrix-based environments than any other. But we have a lot of other embedded technologies actually embedded into IGEL OS in terms of the hooks to make sure that the software itself fit in almost any environment. And remember, since the UD Pocket is essentially IGEL OS on a stick, if you bring that home and pop it into a laptop, you then have the ability to communicate, to exist in environments that include devices and protocols and drivers from all these other vendors. And we're only showing a subset. In fact, it's at over 90 now. So we have over 90 plus partner technology, embedded technologies that interact with IGEL OS. In fact, we are in the process of starting up our own IGEL Ready program, and we're using the Citrix Ready program as our model. So this will allow companies to be IGEL certified and verified. We'll be able to highlight them, those companies, on our website with links and in some cases pages dedicated, etc. That's still in its infancy, but we're building that out as well. But the key point here is that we can support almost any environment, regardless of what your printing requirements are or what analytics packages you're running, etc. So there again is the actual UD Pocket, and again, it's the IGEL OS operating system, along with the management software, connectivity to the management software called the Universal Management Suite, so that you can control these endpoints that have an IGEL UD Pocket inserted into them. It's a secure read-only workspace on there. It supports web browsers. You can have a web browser running on this thing independently, or obviously a lot of people will just want to use the browser that presented in their virtual experience. Either way is fine. And it's a dual boot type of scenario. So in other words, when you pop the IGEL Pocket into your home computer, just reboot the computer, and as it's rebooting, you hit the function key or whatever is required, and that is kind of computer vendor independent. You can choose boot from USB. We have what we call the knowledge base at IGEL, kb.igel.com, kb.igel.com. That's our knowledge base, and we provide information on how to do this on most brands of PC. The other way, of course, is just Google boot from USB, right? And you can find out how to do it. But you basically interrupt the standard boot process, and then you're presented the option that can boot from USB. And when you do that, up comes that user interface that I showed you earlier. And when you do that, basically now that device at home is essentially an IGEL OS powered device. And when the IGEL OS comes up on your home computer, it is essentially fully sandboxed and sequestered securely from the native operating system. Now, 95 times out of 100, that's a Windows 10 operating system running on your home PC. But there, under no circumstances is it possible for any leakage or kind of, intrusion between the two OSs. It stands independently. So while that UD Pocket is inserted, that is an IGEL OS only device. You cannot toggle between the operating systems. The native operating system is blind to the user and cannot be accessed. The only way to go back to the native operating system is to simply unplug the UD Pocket and then reboot. So really that diagram I showed earlier with access to VDI and DAS and clouds, it's exactly the same thing now from your home device. And you're operating under the policies and controls of your enterprise. It's like taking a thin client out of your development lab, bringing it home, and it's still you're still experiencing life as if you were back in the development lab. So that's how that works. Now, the way that this happens, right, because you're in a remote place, you're in your house, you're probably not on the corporate LAN, right, unless you set up a corporate VPN connection to your home. So you are now off the corporate network. So we use software called the IGEL Cloud Gateway, which does not require a separate VPN connection. It essentially has its own kind of internal VPN, if you will, inside the software that allows this kind of corporate LAN-like experience out to your own personal house. So again, now that I've popped my Pocket to my home PC, I now have essentially access to all the web-based apps because we put a secure browser on there. I've got classic VDI that I've probably been using in my work environment, and from there, right, using Citrix or other technology, I can access on any of the popular clouds, including Citrix Cloud or those specific cloud-based services. So really what's happened now is you have all the functionality, all the connectivity, and the corporation has all the control and security it had before you brought the Pocket home and plugged it into your home PC. Right, so this little animation here now shows these home PCs. We're showing an icon that looks sort of like a thin client, and you could use that since it's an x86 device, but that can be any x86 device with a gigahertz processor and 2 gigabytes of RAM. So how do you manage this, right? So you as a user, you're loving the freedom, you're loving the ability to work from home. The corporation, and the key here is management and control. That's why VDI exists. Companies need to be able to manage and control and secure what's happening across that corporate network. So essentially, it's the same exact model. We have what we call the IGEL UMS. It's our Universal Management Suite. From there, your IT administrators manage via policy, which, by the way, can be imported from Active Directory. And in fact, the user interface looks almost exactly like Active Directory. Those policies that you would like to assign to your specific users. Now, companies that will hand out UD Pocket to their employees will have likely already set up policies, configuration policies onto those UD Pockets. that if not, there's a default. So if you get one straight out of the factory and just pop it into your laptop, there's a default configuration folder that exists on the UMS, and from there, the administrator can fine-tune and assign group policies, group enable capabilities on a per-user basis. So what the user does is they pop in at the top right, you can see a little UD pocket sticking out of that home PC. At that point, the UMS administrator is already managing that device because it already exists in a folder, which is pre-configured, or they can add it to a policy configuration folder that they have already built. The software that enables this is what I call the Agile Cloud Gateway. That comes in the software that exists, on the UD Pocket and is also managed from the UMS. So that's already there. But from this, the corporation, the company, the organization has full control over configuration, updating that if there's a new release of software, securing, locking that down. Because remember, the UD Pocket IGEL OS is completely independent of the native operating system. While it's running, the native operating system essentially doesn't exist. And one nice cool feature is that the UMS administrator from that screen at the top left for troubleshooting can actually go out and shadow any copy of IGEL OS that's out there, whether it's on the corporate LAN or running on a UD Pocket inside someone's house on their personal computer. So that person can go out, they can take over the device, they can test things out, they can see what the user is seeing, etc. So not only is it highly secure with great control, but for troubleshooting to keep people up and running should anything happen, you've got full reach from an administrative control standpoint all the way out to all those home computer endpoints that are currently operating as IGEL OS powered. So what the UD Pocket offers is you can turn any device, as long as it's got a gigahertz processor and 2 gigabytes of RAM, and it's an x86 device, so Intel, AMD, etc., into an IGEL OS device. It gives you business continuity. We at IGEL, we moved our entire development team in Augsburg, Germany home, and they were up and running within a day and a half. And we gave them all UD Pockets. Configured the UD Pockets, handed them to them. They were visible on the UMS, and it was as if they had never left the office. So we lost very little time. And we have multiple customers who have done the same thing. Very secure. You don't have to worry about security because, again, when the UD Pocket is in that USB port, it's no longer your home computer. It is now an IGEL managed computer from your company. Pull out the UD Pocket, reboot it, now it's your home computer again. At no time can you toggle back and forth, and at no time can anything bleed from one environment to the other. You get all the remote management and customization that you would have as if it was a device in the lab on the corporate LAN. You can do all kinds of configuration from the UMS. Again, the UMS essentially looks like it's still on the corporate network, it's still back in the development lab, for example. So you don't lose any of that flexibility or configuration and management control. And for the user, they remain as productive as ever. They're back in their native environment. Now if it's a development engineer, you might want to hope, they expect that they've got an endpoint that's powered well enough. If they're doing things like, industrial design or whatever, you'd want to make sure that they pop the Pocket into a powerful machine. But other than the capabilities of the hardware, they have the same experience they would have had in the office. By the way, for universities as well, right? Here in the US, I'm sure around the world, all the university students have been sent home. School kids have been sent home. So now for distance learning, right? Those children and those college students can have the same experience that they had before Pockets in IGEL OS. I had queued up a demo, and right before we started this webinar, the demo was running great, but there was no sound. There's no audio.
Dan,
Yeah.
We might have it. I don't know. We found it and we uploaded it. I'm gonna click on it and see if it'll play.
Give it a shot.
Okay, let's just see what happens here. And if you can't hear it, just let me know.
Do I need to hand this back to you? Take the.
No, I think. Oh, is it? Do you see anything on your screen?
I'm not seeing anything on my screen, no.
Okay, so no, that wasn't it. It just let me. Okay, so what it did was it uploaded it to the handout section, and I thought maybe if we clicked on it there, it would play, but looks like all it did was just open it in a new window for me. So what we'll do is we'll just make sure we get you the link to this video. So
Yeah. So what the video was about 4 minutes long, and it was actually one of our biz dev guys, a gentleman named Mike Barmondi. He actually takes the Pocket out of its little package, pops it into his wife's computer at home. It's a Dell Windows 10 computer, and basically brings up his Citrix Workspace literally within about a minute. And then he demonstrates a lot of capabilities to show that it's essentially behaves, you're back in the office. He even shows the shadowing capability because he's running UMS software on his other PC. But we'll give you the link to that. And actually, when you go out there, you'll see other videos on our YouTube channel that shows Mike doing other things with the Pocket. Feel free to, in one case, he's accessing Office 365 through the secure browser and doing some other things. So check that out. And it's also on our IGEL.com resource library. And I'll show you the link to that a little bit later on. The UD Pocket is on the Citrix Marketplace. So if you go out to the Citrix Marketplace via the URL right there, this is what you'll see. So it describes the device, talks about how it turns any device into an IGEL OS powered endpoint managed by the UMS software, and you see the high level of compatibility that the Pocket with IGEL OS has with a broad range of Citrix applications, functions, and services. Again, and I'm not just saying this because this is the audience. Most of the environments in which IGEL OS is running are Citrix based. So what next? Here's a couple useful URLs. We have a URL, igel.com/work-from-home. From there, we talk about a lot of things, including the UD Pocket, with some examples of how that's been used for people to very quickly, without skipping much of a beat from an operational productivity standpoint, get up and running from home. Especially if you've got gear in the office that's difficult to move. If you've got environments that are set up and everything's plugged together, and instead of having to throw all this stuff into the trunk of a car and then reconfigure it at your house, just take this thumb-sized UD Pocket, pop it into your home PC, and you basically brought your office home with you. And then on igel.com/resources, that is our website resource library. From there, you can see we have a new piece that I put out there, top reasons to choose IGEL with Citrix. It's kind of a tip sheet. You can also see the videos that we talked about, along with a lot of other valuable resources out there. So at this point, we're open to some Q&A. And if I've got the ability, I'm happy to answer any questions you guys might have, if you have any.
Yeah, there's one question. What happens if the things get lost or stolen? How much access does the person have, and how would we be able to retrieve these?
So if the UD Pocket gets lost or stolen, it's as if you had a thin client lost or stolen, which means it becomes useless, because unless somebody's got the credentials to go in there as a valid user, they wouldn't be able to get anywhere, right? So, I mean, in all cases, you have to have the credentials, right, to be able to log on and start doing anything. So if it gets lost or stolen too, replace, you just ship out another UD Pocket. They're pre-configured by your enterprise, or go to the default configuration, and then from the UMS, it can be quickly kind of configured appropriately based on what you do.
Can we push different configurations to different sets of UD pockets?
Yeah. So, think of it again, if you're familiar with VDI and thin clients and all that kind of thing, it works exactly the same way. So from the Universal Management Suite, which again looks very, very similar to Active Directory, and in fact, we can import everything you've already set up on Active Directory UMS. You can basically set up policies and capabilities and enable people based on their role, their function, their department, or individually, and manage that just like you would any place else. So yeah, there's the number of different profiles are theoretically unlimited, right? As they would be within any company. Typically, you've got a profile for an engineer, and a profile for a marketing person, and a profile for somebody in ops, et cetera. It works exactly the same way.
Okay, I got another question from the audience. Any options to have something like absolute software, formerly CompuTrace, embedded in the device?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question maybe a little bit slower?
Any options to have something like absolute software, formerly CompuTrace, embedded in the device?
So I showed you those 90 plus, it's actually now 90 plus partners. And IGEL OS is what things are quote unquote embedded in, right? And the UD Pocket always includes the latest copy of IGEL OS. Now, if there is a protocol or connectivity to a device that is not yet supported by IGEL OS, and I don't know if the CompuTrace stuff is or not, we support what we call custom partitions. And custom partitions are part of the software that starting like literally today, because those used to require some extra functionality, but that is now part of IGEL OS. So anybody who gets a UD Pocket gets the latest version of IGEL OS, which by the way also includes the latest client Citrix, which is the Workspace App 1912 is what we're supporting now. But if you've got like a specific configuration that you need to support, and if it's not natively supported by the current version of IGEL OS, we can allow that to be supported through what we call a custom partition. So in that case, it's like anything else. You contact your IGEL representative. You say, hey, I've got this thing, this software, we'd like to have supported because we use it all the time in our company and our people are used to using it. We can then take that, create an interim build, if you will, of the software that we give to you and update Pocket with that software so that you can support it. And then what happens, what's nice about the custom partition is that in the next release, the next kind of primary release of IGEL OS, and we do 4 of them per year, roughly 1 every 3 months, that custom partition then gets included as part of the overall IGEL OS capability. So that's how we keep adding more and more partner technologies and configurations and protocols and drivers, et cetera, into the code base.
Okay, got a few. The questions that keep coming in, which is nice. Can you update the UD Pocket as new IGEL OS updates are released, or is a new purchase required with every version?
Right now, up to today, you would have to buy IGEL OS with the UD Pocket, right? Because it's essentially just IGEL OS on a stick, right? So and we're a software company, so you would buy, and the packaging is something called IGEL Workspace Edition, and that gives you the IGEL OS software, it gives you all the protocols that we support and all the interconnectivity and all that. So you have to buy the Workspace Edition software, and it gets delivered on the UD Pocket. So the UD Pocket is nothing more than kind of this little thing that's the delivery mechanism for the software. So that you pop it into your home. Now, going forward, along with what's going on in the world today, we are putting together a package we're calling a work from home kit that will allow you to get UD pockets combined with the Workspace Edition software, combined with everything you kind of need to set yourself up quickly at home. It'll either be one or two SKUs, but it'll make it very, very easy to order everything you need, including the UD pocket itself, in one order. And it'll be price reduced so that people can quickly accumulate UD pockets for people who are now working from home who were not before. Stay tuned on that. We haven't externally announced it. It's still, we're real close to it. We're still coming up with the final price on it, but it's real close. But it would represent a very significant savings if you bought kind of the, everything separately. So we call that the work from home kit. So stay tuned on that one.
For newer computers that have USB-C only, how are you targeting this?
Yeah, so we will be very soon coming out with a USB-C version of the UD Pocket. We've had a lot of customers asking for this for quite some time now. And I was just in an internal IGEL webinar this morning where one of our field people asked just that question. So the good news is out of our operations team is that we will soon be unveiling a USB-C version of the UD Pocket. I don't know if that's a week out or a month out, but it's happening soon. So again, I'll say it again, stay tuned on that one, but we responded to that. You'll see that soon.
Okay, perfect. Will you ever have a Raspberry Pi version of the UD Pockets?
Well, the UD Pocket is our software that will go into any device that will take, now I think maybe the question is the Raspberry Pi an x86? I think that's the question, right? Because the UD Pocket will go into any x86 based device. On the Raspberry Pi, I can't answer that. I really don't know. That would be something we'd have to follow up on.
Okay, last question. Is there any functionality to support multi-factor authentication?
What type of authentication?
Multi-factor authentication.
Since so IGEL OS supports multi-factor authentication through that list of all those partners. Some of those partners are palm vein scanners, and we do a lot of work with Imprivata, etc. So remember, the UD Pocket is nothing more than IGEL OS, and it turns your device into an IGEL OS device. So the answer is that is supported today. So if in your home or your remote location, you want to add some level of extra authentication, we've got a list of companies with whom we provide that capability. If you go kb.igel.com on the knowledge base and search for dual factor authentication supported by IGEL OS, you can see the list of technologies that we work with to offer that.
Okay, that's it about the questions.
Okay.
All right. I will grab the screen back. I just have a couple of closing items of business, not much. Just trying to get it back. There we go.
Yeah.
Looks like it's just showing white on my screen. Can you see the CUGC logo?
Yeah, I'm just seeing white as well. Maybe if I'll close mine completely, and that might help you somehow. I don't know.
GoToWebinar, I think, is feeling challenged the past couple of days. Maybe if I pause and start again.
Yeah, I think, yeah, there you go.
There we go. Okay. All right. So obviously, CUGC's local events that happen all around the world haven't been able to occur because we cannot gather. But we are doing meetings online using Zoom and a couple other things. So they came up with CUGC to go, and you can join any of these meetings. So all you have to do is cruise over to our events calendar and at mycugc.org and find, just check out the events. There are several coming on the calendar soon. They're not all ready to go yet, but definitely keep checking back because we're working with each of our local groups so we can, have everyone get together. So we're not all cut off from each other. And finally, just a reminder that I know some of you may have signed up for a chance to win the Jabra wireless Bluetooth speaker, and that person will be chosen at random offline and notified, and then we'll announce the winner on Twitter. So follow us on Twitter at mycugc to make sure you find out who won. Also, just a reminder to check us out at mycugc.org. There is a lot of great content out there for you. We've got great blog posts, recordings of past webinars you can find if you've missed them. And then we have forum threads if you have questions or if you have answers. Love to have you pop into those. So definitely come in and take a look. And with that, I just want to thank you all for being with us today. And oh, just a reminder, I did put a link to the survey in the chat window. Like I said, it's very short and anonymous. We just like to get your feedback. And that is it. I want to thank you all for being here. And thank you, Dan, for doing another webinar with us. And thanks, Bart, for keeping an eye on all those questions for us.
Yeah, and thanks, Stephanie, and apologize again about that demo, but igel.com/resources, you scroll around there, you'll find the demo, and you'll send the link, right, Stephanie, as well?
Yes, I absolutely will. And maybe if I can get all of those other links that were in the slide deck, or I can actually get the slide deck, I can provide that too, and then people can access them there too. But I'll make sure all that stuff is put together in an email for you guys.
Great.
All right, well, thank you so much. I do see one last question came in. I know it's, I don't know if we have 3 minutes, maybe you want to take one last question before we close out, since it popped up. Looks like it's about resolving bandwidth issues that you face with VD.
Bandwidth issues we face with what?
I guess virtual desktop.
I guess, yeah, I mean, that's classic. That doesn't change. Typically, the protocols will take care of that, or at least adjust to bandwidth issues. But it is especially now, today, in the current world we're living in, there is a lot of competition and contention for bandwidth. So it's a valid concern. It seems most of these networks are holding up fairly well, although we saw a couple of glitches even on our session today. But either the protocols, or for example, we do things within our own technology to help with bandwidth issues. For example, if we are updating a lot of our endpoint devices, whether it's using a UD Pocket or running natively, we have what we call a buddy system. Think of it as kind of a tree, where instead of blasting the content out to every single device directly, it kind of flows through kind of branches, kind of minimize the impact on bandwidth across your enterprise or out to your house. But we're living in extreme times right now, and we're all hoping that the bandwidth and the networks that are out there can handle it. I think they're being tested to the max right now, but certainly the protocols that Citrix runs and that we're adhering to at our end are do whatever they can to help alleviate that.
All right. I see there's a couple more questions coming in. What I'll do, since we're up at the top of the hour, I will get those questions over to you, Dan, and get the answers and connect you maybe with the person asking the question, so we can get some direct answers too, if that's all right.
Yeah, I'll be happy to do that.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks again. Appreciate you being with us today, and appreciate all of you for being on the webinar today. And we listen, we're going to have a lot of webinars coming up soon, so please be sure to check out our calendar. We got a lot of great user shares coming up, so excited to see what the community is bringing forth. So So be sure to check out our calendar, and we will see you all online.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.